How's it going, Jeremians? Those who have followed me on Instagram, on social media, on Facebook, and who have kept up to date with my channel would know that last month I was away in Hong Kong for about a week for a food trip with my family. And I brought along my 15-month-old daughter to enjoy the Hong Kong trip with me, and we were there with a couple of friends who were also enjoying the food trip together with us. The last time I was in Hong Kong was more than 10 years ago, and Hong Kong has changed quite a lot since then. But during my trip there, I enjoyed very much of Hong Kong, but there are 5 things about Hong Kong which affected me, and in my opinion, Singapore in that respect is better than Hong Kong in this couple of points. Don't get me wrong, so every country has their own cultural quirks and weirdness or uniqueness, and that is something which I noticed and it affected me personally. That is why I decided that I've come back here and I just want to make a video and we can have a little discussion. Is my perception of Hong Kong true, or is it just something that I'm just too sensitive about? One of the very first things that hit me as I landed in Hong Kong was the prevalence of smoking. And I would have imagined that a country like Hong Kong would have had a lot tighter control on the prevalence of smoking and where people can smoke. And I guess I have been brought up in a country like Singapore where we are so extremely particular about having clean air, and that smokers are only allowed to smoke in very, very specific places. In fact, in our famous shopping belt, Orchard Road, smokers literally have to cram themselves into a tiny little yellow box or even a smoking room before they can light up. And there are instances where smokers in Singapore, just because they had 1 foot out of that yellow box when they were smoking, and they were given a fine for smoking out of the yellow box. However, when I was in Hong Kong, most places that I went, I could smell cigarette smoke. I could see people smoking as they were walking along the street. I am someone who has asthma and I'm sensitive to cigarette smoke. I have nothing against people who smoke. It is absolutely your right, and you're free to do whatever you want with your life. You're free to smoke. However, I would have thought that Hong Kong would have had a lot tighter legislation to make sure that smoking is less prevalent in Hong Kong. It would not have been so surprising had it been 10 years ago. So 10 years ago when I was in Hong Kong, of course, smoking was everywhere, and that was the same thing pretty much in Singapore as well. But where Singapore is today is that we are a lot stricter and tighter on smoking than Hong Kong is. I may be wrong, so let me know in the comments below and let's have a discussion about this. The second thing that I didn't really enjoy very much about Hong Kong was how extremely crowded it was. So the thing is that Singapore isn't known to be, very sparsely populated. We have one of the highest population densities in the world, but when you're in Singapore, there is a sense that there is still quite a distribution of the population across the Singapore island. And in Hong Kong, it just seems that there's a massive concentration of people along the popular places, and that just felt extremely congested and kind of claustrophobic for me, someone who enjoys more space. So even in a very densely populated place like Singapore, where I am from, there are still many places of greenery, and our urban planners has basically planned Singapore in such a way where there are a lot of different parks and playgrounds, places that we can just go and chill out and just enjoy a lot more space to ourselves. So the crowdedness was something I experienced in the public transport system, on the roads with the number of cars and the number of people at the pedestrian crossings, as well as the shopping malls, the night markets and the cafe and restaurants that we visited during our week stay in Hong Kong. And so I brought my 15-month-old daughter to Hong Kong with me, and we had her in a stroller, in a pram, and we were just trying to get around Hong Kong without having to carry her around too much because she was getting heavier as she was getting older. So the third reason that I feel that Singapore does a lot better is that of accessibility for those who are less mobile, whether is it for those who are on wheelchair, the elderly, as well as children in prams or strollers. So I found that there were a lot of pavements where we had difficulty pushing the stroller over. Pretty much a lot of the train stations, lifts and disabled friendly facilities were really just limited to just a certain portion. And even then, there seems to be significantly less priority for those who are disabled and less mobile, and those who have children to push around. So in Singapore, we take mobility extremely seriously. So pretty much almost any recently built buildings, as well as our public transport system and our buses, for example, cater very much to those on wheelchair. So if you are a wheelchair user, for example, in Singapore, the bus captains would actually get down from their bus and put up a ramp so that you can wheel the wheelchair into the bus. And even though you are disabled and you are not so mobile, you can actually get around in Singapore. That was a challenge that we had. We had to fold up our pram, we had to have a problem getting our pram into buses and trams. People usually in trains were just simply not giving way. And even in the lifts, people were not giving way, and able-bodied adults were just rushing for the lifts, even though we had no choice but to use the lifts because we had to push a child with a stroller with us. The fourth thing which kind of affected me and that made me didn't enjoy Hong Kong that much was I thought that the people in Hong Kong, especially shopkeepers and shop assistants, just wasn't as friendly as people in Singapore where I am from. So even when we were at the cafes, at the restaurants, and we were asking questions about the food, they just seemed extremely impatient, like, why are you not ready to order? Why are you wasting my time? Could you not have decided what you want to eat? Just get done with your order and move on, That is something I don't experience in Singapore. I guess it can also boil down to the fact that people in Hong Kong just are a lot more stressed because their pace of life just seems to be so much faster and they just seem more wound up. So if there's no money to be made from you, if there's no benefit to be derived from you, I don't think they want to be very much bothered with you at all. So I just felt that people were just not giving way to me, even though I had a baby with me. I'm not expecting to be entitled or having the privilege, but I think, it is part of being considerate to people, being courteous, friendly, and kind, and being mindful of people who are... Someone just walked past. And being mindful of people who are just less fortunate than you, and just doing what you can to make sure that things are a little bit easier for them. Even at the building where we rented an Airbnb, the security counter wasn't helpful at all. In fact, they just gave us the kind of eye like, what are we doing here? We are just kind of imposing on his personal time. He was watching some Hong Kong drama on his little tablet, and he was just not friendly at all because we were trying to get into our apartment and there was little help we could get from the people there. And the last thing I noticed, I'm not sure if it's because I'm too sensitive, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had that sense that there is a certain sense of discrimination towards people from mainland China. So I am Chinese, my race is Chinese, and when they saw me speaking in Mandarin, in Guoyu, they felt that I was a Chinese national from China, and they were just more rude and more impatient with me. But the minute I used some Singlish with my friends who were traveling with me, and they realized that we are actually not from mainland China but from Singapore, I literally could sense the 360 degrees absolute round change. I'm surprised to find random banana trees in the middle of a car park of nowhere. Apparently somebody has been planting quite a number of these banana trees around. Whether it's legal or not, I have no idea. So what do you guys think about my Hong Kong experience versus Singapore? Was I correct in what I experienced, or was I just being too sensitive? Let's have an active discussion. So again, there's no hate in this at all. It is just my opinion and my experience, and feel free to have a differing opinion. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and basically subscribe if you haven't. Till I see you in the next video. Bye-bye.